Welcome to the DC Tweet Team Podcast with Andy Burrows.
This calls for immediate discussion.
Maurice Hawkins.
Are you sure this is legal?
I don't know. It's fun though, isn't it?
And Shelley Jordan.
I'm your huckleberry.
And now, here's your host, Andy Burrows.
Welcome, everybody, to the DC Tweet Team Podcast. I, as always, am your host, Andy Burrows, and I'm joined by my co-host today, Maurice Hawkins. Maurice, how are you, my friend?
Good morning, Andy. So fired up to be on the DC Tweet Team Podcast after a victory.
Yes, we are. Normally, we would be joined by Shelley, but she is under the weather today, so we wish Shelley all the best and a speedy recovery. But hey, what a guest we've got for you today, our good buddy and the Washington Post-game host, Mr. Scott Jackson. Scott, how are you, sir?
Good to be with you guys. Always better to be talking about a win rather than another loss, that's for sure.
Yeah, and Scott, let's get straight into it. What a win it was for the Washington football team. Before we break down the game and we get into the schematics of everything, have you seen such a crazier game in recent times at FedEx Field?
I mean, it ranks up there as one of the weirdest ones for sure. And, you know, with the circumstance, you thought you had you lost it because of the missed field goal. Then you get a second chance at it. And, you know, there's certainly some bad feelings on both sides about how the game ended. Giants fans have been tweeting out all week that that Lawrence wasn't offside. You know, it's certainly from the angle that you get, you don't see it. But I mean, there were so many bad calls in that game, both sides. Those officials really have no business going back out of the field for a few weeks. I mean, they were awful. There were so many bad calls in that game. But anyway, I mean, like Ron Rivera said it right after the game on our broadcast. He said, "Look, I feel very fortunate to have won this game," and that's the truth. I mean, it's very fortunate is how they should feel because that could have gone either way. They had it, they lost it, they had it, they lost it. I mean, and then finally, lost it and won it. So, take it. Nobody's going to ask you at week 17, hey, you got your first win. It's not going to be like an asterisk. It doesn't count less. It still equals one. So, take it and move on, and hopefully you get better from it.
Yeah, no, Scott, I listened to you guys after the game, taking a lot of callers about our new star quarterback. I mean, a lot of people have been wanting him in from week one. A lot of people out there didn't want Fitzpatrick to even be starting. There's many Heineke fans. There's many Taylor Heineke fans out there. Is he the next quarterback of the Washington football team? He's the quarterback for now. Right. For me, it's his job to lose now. I mean, he went out there on Thursday night. He put up some very good numbers. Yeah, he had an interception, but now name me a quarterback in the NFL that doesn't throw interceptions. Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, they all do it. What did you make of our quarterback's game on Thursday night? And have we maybe finally found a little bit of stability at that position?
All right. So the backstory, of course, I'm an Old Dominion graduate. I had no football when I went there. I mean, it was intramural football at Norfolk State, played at our stadium. So anyway, I'm a big Taylor Heineke guy. I saw him play in college. Saw his last game of college at Foreman Field at the time. Always thought, he had that quote, it factor. I didn't know how to translate in the NFL. But that, is he a Drew Brees type who can overcome the height, or Russell Wilson kind of player? Maybe. I mean, one of the Washington players mentioned it reminds him a little bit of Russell Wilson. I think that's a fair comp. Although he doesn't run around quite as much as Russell, I think they're happy with that. He's the quarterback for now. That's all that really needs to be. You don't have to proclaim anything. I know the fan base gets caught up in these semantics about is he the quarterback of the future? Oh my God, all this stuff. And and I get it. And some of these teams that quote unquote have the quarterback of the future really don't. So whatever that means. I mean, right now you just let him play until either A, he gets hurt, or B, he's ineffective, and then you have to make a move. But I think what we've seen, here's all we can really base Taylor Heineke on, I think, to be fair to him, in Washington. Okay, he played a quarter against the Panthers, damn near pulled that game out, but the damage was done by Dwayne Haskins' crappy play for the 3 quarters prior to that. Played toe-to-toe with Tom Brady in a playoff game. Without Antonio Gibson being a real factor, right? I mean, Gibson was dinged up. He wasn't that good in that game. Did a great job there. Came in the Chargers game and gave them something that Ryan Fitzpatrick wasn't giving them for, a quarter and a half. He was in there. And then obviously a full start here against the Giants. He gets a W. So I think, look, you'd like what he did. He's got to go to Buffalo. He's going to play his first real NFL road game So let's see how that looks, and then we'll just continue to go from there. Remember this, I mean, Kyle Allen wasn't 100% healthy to start camp, coming off that surgery. Ron Rivera thinks highly of Kyle Allen too. So as I had said to people all along, I thought they had 3 quarterbacks they could win with, 3 quarterbacks that were kind of interchangeable in a sense. I didn't think, Fitzpatrick, what he had going for him coming into this thing, and why I think ultimately they brought him in and why they gave him the starting job, and is because he had the experience level. And, the thing about Taylor is, going out to the training camps, practices, and here in Ashburn, and I like Taylor, again, a big believer in him. He's a gamer, but in practice, he's not going to blow you away. I mean, there's a lot of inaccuracy. I mean, you saw that a little bit in the game early. He's throwing some balls high, misses high a lot. That concerns you. But, overall, I mean, he really settled into that game after kind of a rocky first couple series. I thought, it could have really shooken him. I thought, throwing that pick in his own territory late. And you can question the wisdom of the call. If you rewatch the play, he had an obvious safety valve wide the heck open in Antonio Gibson. He's got to learn from that. And Bradbury played with him to his credit. He knows Taylor's tendencies. They've been running that play the entire game. Obviously, McLaurin got knocked off his route a little bit when he got bumped in, so he wasn't where Taylor thought he would be. And just a hell of a play by Bradbury, who went to work on that. So anyway, look, they survived it. Luckily the Giants were stupid. They didn't run the clock enough. They threw on 3rd down, incompletion, which stopped the clock, saved Washington from burning another timeout. Didn't get to use the 2-minute warning, which was stupid on their part too. So they couldn't, at least run the clock down that way. So they just left too much time on the clock for Taylor Heineke, which sounds so funny to say, but they did. And it's great. So I just take this week to week. That's all you can do at this point. And I think, he's your guy for now. Could he go out and play poorly in Buffalo? Would that shock me? No. I mean, Buffalo's good. I mean, it's a hard place to play. Clearly the offensive line, they played a lot better in this game, but they still got some work to do. And, defensively, man, they got a lot of work to do right now. That's a real story to me. I mean, people can talk about the quarterback and waste your time with that, but man, this defense, come on. I mean, these guys got to wake up in a hurry here.
Yeah, Scott, before we get to Maurice, one of the questions that come in on the UK Washington Football Team Facebook page for us today, but hi, Andy, Martin would like to know, and I'll put this to you, Scott, you just mentioned it well there. Why has our defense started so poorly this season? And does anybody actually rate Dustin Hopkins? We'll get to Hop later. we'll get to Hop later. But Scott, the questions come in there. Why has our defense, I think we set standards so high last season, and they were very high, and we had a rookie coming in with Chase Young who set the league alight. Let's not lie now. So I mean, he's had a slow start, whether that's to do with a lot more teams having film on him now. Sure. He's not the rookie anymore. They can sit back, evaluate how he plays. Do you think it's just the fact that we have started slowly? It's just one of them things, and hey, look, it's week 2, let's not read too much into it? Or are you, like a lot of Washington fans, and I've been critical myself, are you slightly concerned, or more than concerned, about the way this defense has started?
Well, listen, they started the expectation thing. We didn't make this up. They played at a high level last season, and then they talked about being the best defense in the NFL, breaking sack records as a tandem of DNs and all this kind of stuff, and that's fine. I mean, I like the high standard, and then different Landon Collins, new version, him and Cam Curl are fine together, yet they don't play that much together per se. I mean, there's this rotation going on with McCain, which is interesting. Linebackers are not good. I mean, there's no other way to put it. I mean, it's the weakest position on the roster, if you ask me. I mean, they cut down to 4 of them, had to bring in 1 back after the final cut. I was a little surprised they didn't go harder in the draft, maybe in the first 2 rounds at that position. Jamin Davis, I mean, Ron Rivera can talk him up. PFF can tell you he was the highest rated defensive player playing the limited snaps he played. That's fine, but he's not as far along as they had hoped he'd be at this point, obviously, because he's not on the field as much as they hoped he'd be. He did a nice job in coverage down towards the red zone. It was a big play to make the tackle there. And Shepard, it's not an easy cover for a linebacker, so that was encouraging. But they want him to play fast. He hasn't played fast yet. I know.
What do you put that down to, Scott? What do you put that down to?
He just doesn't know. His head's spinning, man. He hasn't played that much football. Really, if you look at his career, he hadn't played that much football. I mean, Kentucky was really a 1-year starter, right? I mean, so he's got to play a little bit more, I think, is the bigger thing. So that's it. I mean, and defensively, I think some of it could be, talking to some of the former defensive players in this town that I was in the booth with on Thursday night. I think scheme has something to do with it. Guys not making plays. I mean, I still see a lot of the same stuff I saw in the Greg Minuski defense when dudes are looking at each other. If a guy blows wide open, like, hey, was that you? Was that me? Like they don't know, or they're pointing fingers. So, I mean, that worries me early on. yeah, Sweat and Young, they've made some plays, no question. I think it was better than I thought it was live, to be honest with you, going back and looking at it again. However, the bootleg plays, they've got to be smarter than that. I mean, Ryan Kerrigan used to get crucified in this town for getting sucked in on bootlegs and stuff like that. And these guys, I mean, Daniel Jones blows around the end how many times on you and you're not figuring it out? I noticed later in the game they were splitting wider with the ends, so that kind of took away a little bit of that, which was smart. So there were some adjustments made there. And Jack Del Rio, Ron Rivera, this is what they do. They do defense. They love defense. They love two former linebackers. They're gonna work on it. I think that's one thing I will say. Last year we saw this team get better as the year went on. I just wish the defense, it would be nice. Let me just put it this way. It'd be nice to see this team come out and punch somebody in the mouth first. It's just been a pattern, is like they get hit in the mouth first. Like outside of like the Philadelphia game last year, the second Philadelphia game in week 17, they've not jumped on a team and got a lead early, right? This defense is set up to play with a lead. They just haven't been able to do that consistently outside of little parts of games. You know what I mean? And then once they can do that, I think, yeah, it's going to look dominating. You see the takeaways and those things. But to this point, when they're playing it even, it's not the best. They're not good against running quarterbacks. I think they've shown that in almost, in a year plus now. And that's concerning because you're going to play Josh Allen on a week from today. So you got to figure that out. And the quarterbacks this season, as everybody's pointed out, are clearly better on the schedule right now, assuming everybody, all parts being equal going to these games. Good part is Jonathan Allen. Dude, I feel like they underpaid him now. He's been really good. Ioannidis still got some rust on him. It looks like I didn't see a lot of Tim Settle. I was a little surprised by that on Thursday. I thought I might see he rotates in a lot. I've seen a lot of James Smith-Williams. They really like to put him out there. It looks like again, Sweat and Young, they're making impact plays. I think the consistency thing, and then the other concern is and I get it, they played 81 snaps, or they were on the defense played 81 snaps, not those two guys. But there's a lot of this going on. There's a lot, and that was early in the game against the Giants. There was one drive, and both of them are the same player trying to get out, which is interesting. Just because at some point you just these are your best players, man. You guys, we need you. We need you out there. And then when they're on the field for big third downs, it's glaring. I mean, because everybody notices it when they're not on the field for third downs. That's happened a few times here in these first 2 weeks, which is wild. But I mean, they played a ton of snaps. I went back and looked at the snap count. I was like, okay, it's higher than I thought it was. But you remember the few plays they're not in there, right? And you're like, damn it, why aren't they in the game? We need them in there. So it's interesting. It definitely, like I said, there's a linebacker issue that's not going to be solved this season. That's for sure. But that, in terms of personnel, but Davis has they've got to speed up the process with him. And I'll take Rivera for his word. If he saw progress this week, good. Then let's see him on the field more. Let's see him on the field more if you're that confident.
Yeah, most definitely. Maurice?
Yeah, Scott. When I look at the scheme on both sides of the ball, both offense and defense, the word that pops in my mind is conservative. It seems like there's a hesitancy for this team to be attack oriented, especially on defense. It seems like Coach Del Rio really wants to rely on base sets and not really dial up exotic blitz packages. What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, it was interesting because when they did blitz, Fred Smoot and I talked about this post game. The few times they did blitz, it worked pretty well against Jones. I mean, I understand part of the thing. Look, you have a running quarterback. You don't want to play too much man because your back's to the play, and then the guy breaks out, and then you're in trouble. I get that part of it, the playing zone, and people, they said they didn't want to play as much zone. Again, a lot of these things that are frustrated people are based on things they talked about inside this building. Like Rivera said, we want to play more man. We want to be more, so we got to go after people a little bit more. And so that people pick up on that and they don't see it maybe in the first couple of weeks. And they're like, well, what's going on there? And, hey, we're going to break a sack record and you're not seeing what you thought you'd see. So, yeah, I mean, I think that's fair. Although I'd be honest with you, I thought Scott Turner was extremely aggressive with Taylor Heineke for the most part. Again, there were some good plays dialed up. I thought Denami Brown, as good as he's been, he really should have fought for that ball in the end zone. I don't know. He just quit on the play on that one going to the other direction late in the game. The play, he put the pedal to the metal. I think there was a lot of people bitching that they didn't run it enough with Gibson, who seemed to be getting churned in there when he got around to, when he was getting to the double-digit carries. Maybe want to see that more towards 18 to 20. There was a good McKissick game. I was glad to see him back. He should have been in the first game more. He was a weapon for them last year, and you can play both of those guys at the same time, which I think is good too. So I don't know. I thought Turner actually had a really good game plan. I just think early when your quarterback is just wildly inaccurate, I mean, you can bitch at the offensive coordinator all you want, but it's on the player at some point to make the throws, and he did. And then they looked a lot better after that. And it wasn't like Taylor was doing like he did in the playoffs necessarily, having to make plays with his legs all the time, right? He wasn't like, just scramble drill or what have you. But a lot of it was he was in the pocket operating, which was very encouraging. I actually think, the play calling on the offensive part, I was good with, but yeah, defensively, they're the ones in the spot right now. They got to dial it up and you would think be a little bit more aggressive, but they want teams to try to drive it on them. And I get it, because a lot of times the teams stall out. The Giants kicked how many field goals in that game? I mean, Graham Gano was great. And I was cursing Mike Shanahan in the press box saying, thanks for cutting in for Billy Cundiff, you moron. So anyway, but yeah, I mean, so I get that part of it, but yeah, I think they've got to look at that. And with this extra time this week, I'll be curious to see what it looks like against Buffalo, because Josh Allen, he didn't look great in week 1 against the Steelers. Maybe he can steal some of what Pittsburgh did to him. We'll see what he looks like today down in Miami, but that was not a really encouraging start if you're a Buffalo fan. They're talking Super Bowl, and they go out and lay an egg on their home field.
Yeah.
One more quick question for Scott before we kick it back to you. Scott, what were your thoughts on that touchdown pass to Ricky Seals-Johnson?
Ricky Seals-Jones, yeah.
Ricky Seals-Jones, I apologize.
Right.
From Heineke. I mean, we have not seen that type of passing accuracy in a long time in Washington. What were your thoughts about that touchdown pass?
Well, that was a great throw. Number one, that kind of like some of the questions about, hey, does Taylor, can he fit it in there, right, in a hurry? Because sometimes it looks like, some of those passes McLaurin were kind of hanging for a while over the middle. You're like, wow, you better kind of put a little more zip on him. But that was a great play, because he kind of looked off, and then there was a little pressure coming from the side, and then the pocket was starting to collapse on him, and he throws it, and his feet weren't exactly perfect, but he still zipped it in there. It was just a perfect throw, because either it's going to be an incompletion or it's a touchdown. Those are the two alternatives. It's not going to be picked off the way he threw it, which was great. He fit it in there. The throw before that, then McKissick was phenomenal.
Oh, wow. Down the sidelines.
He threaded it. The defense is there. I actually thought McKissick was going to go all the way, but that was a good angle by the Giants DB to chase him down. But
Taylor went through his progressions as well, didn't he, for that touchdown, Scott? You could physically see him doing it, which is good to see, because you're like, he hasn't panicked.
He wanted to go to Logan Thomas first, who was over the middle, and then Logan got kind of caught up, and so he, there was coverage over there, it shaded that way, so he went back. And that's right. And that's what's great about it, because he's reading it. He's going through his progressions. And look, there was this knock on Kirk Cousins when he was here, even though he had these fourth quarter comeback statistics that were high or what have you, but that he was the kind of guy that would late in those games drive you crazy, because he was checking down. He just wasn't just trying to force the issue. And not that necessarily that Taylor was forcing the issue, but he just showed you, he was like, you know what, we have to make a play here. We got this drawn up. We're going to try to make a play. And maybe it's also the philosophy of Turner versus the previous, offenses too. I don't know, but I liked it. I mean, I just like everything about what he's doing right now. I hope he can handle what I'm sure is going to be some added attention on his plate, with people wanting to pull at him that he probably didn't know that were related to him, and national media and all that other stuff. That's going to get his attention.
Well, I know I've experienced the legend of Taylor Heineke years ago as an alumnus of Norfolk State University.
Oh yeah,
in that playoff game, and he went slam off on us. So Taylor's just letting the rest of America know how good he can actually be as a signal caller.
Yeah, it's exciting to see. And again, like I said, I hope he keeps it going and they can keep him healthy. And the best part of that game, he didn't take many hits. No. He really limited that, and obviously he's put a lot of work in his upper body this offseason to be stronger, so he can withstand some of that, because that's where he's had some of his injuries. The elbow dislocation at Carolina, he had the AC joint last year in the playoff game that he played through. So no, it's good to see. And again, I just like he's got big onions, as Bill Rafferty would say, onions. The great college basketball broadcaster, but he's not afraid. He's not afraid.
Got one player that stood out for me in the first game and the second game. He had a fumble in the first game, Antonio Gibson, but for me, he's getting a lot of the work now, and he's coming back off that turf toe injury. And a lot of people are still saying he's not even fully 100% game ready yet. I mean, he had 13 carries for 69 yards on Thursday night. For me, they seem to be relying on him a lot more now than they have in previous seasons. What have you made of his start to the season? And do you think, I mean, I've written in my notes for today, on Thursday night, I just put Antonio Gibson, breakout year. I genuinely think he's going to be one of, we look at Terry for so much, but when you've got an Antonio Gibson and he can come out of that backfield and maybe and play as that receiver, and what do you think we were expecting from him from this season?
Well, I mean, I think we expect a lot from him. I mean, to be honest with you, like I said, I thought he could have had a little bit, if he'd have got a few more touches, I think he would have been closer to the 90 yards that he had in the previous game, or, if he'd have gotten some more opportunities. But yeah, he was running aggressively. He pressed the hole in this game, he made a point of it. He didn't bounce it out like the fumble play. If you go back, and it's been broken down a million times, the fumble play, if he just followed his blocking, it's like a 5 or 6 yard game, maybe more if he comes through the other side, right? Because he's a strong, big kid, and he gets his pad level lower. I think Brian Baldinger showed a really good breakdown of how he's getting lower this year and finishing guys off. I like watching those things. But he can catch the ball. I still want the screen game to get better. I still like to see this team run screens better, because I think that's something that should be a weapon for them, not just trying to run wide receiver screens, which are fine if you have the right people out there to block. They haven't quite figured out that combination yet, but I'd like to see a little bit more of that with him. But yeah, he looks terrific, and I hope to think after 2 weeks, the idea, and I was laughing in the preseason when they kept talking about, you got to keep Peyton Barber to carry the ball for 1 yard or 2 yards. I was like, give me a break. You can't. You got to keep the best people. Jarrett Patterson was light years ahead of him, young legs. And by the way, I still think there's going to be a game when he's going to do something for them, and they're going to need him, and you saw it for a brief period against the Chargers when he came in. He had a couple really good runs. That one got called back because of a hole, which stunk. I think it was like an 8 or 9 yard run, maybe 10 yard run. And, he gives them, if something were to happen to Gibson again, he's the starter, and McKissick stays in his role. It doesn't change, but I love what he brings them to. And, hey man, Gibson, he's a young, hungry guy behind him, that helps him too, pushes it all. It pushes the whole room. And like I said, McKissick looked great in this game, and it was good to see him back in the game plan. But I think, tough thing for Scott Turner is just finding the footballs for everybody, right? He went out of his way to feed Terry, which was smart, because Terry didn't get the ball enough in the first game. I think the guy that is MIA on the offense right now that people will look at and continue to talk about is Cam Sims. And clearly they think Brown's in front of him, and that they're pushing Brown, and obviously Humphreys in the slot.
Humphreys, I was going to say Humphreys got quite a few looks, didn't he?
Yeah, Humphreys and actually Taylor looked very comfortable, and a lot of the concern obviously was that was kind of Fitzpatrick's guy or what have you, but I think they've come together pretty nicely quickly.
Yeah, one person, quite a few people tweeted me about this, and I noticed it a little bit in preseason. DeAndre Carter, I know he's only playing on special teams, Scott. My God, this guy can move. I mean, we haven't had that on special. We had Sims last year. Let's not talk about him. But he's another player that you don't pay attention so much to special teams as maybe you should. But every time that guy gets the football, he goes off like a freight train. I mean, he's on special teams in a minute, and a lot of people have messaged, been on social media and stuff, saying, "Hey, let's not forget about this guy." Look when he gets the ball, he takes his opportunity. Return. I can't remember the last time we had a kickoff return for a touchdown, but a lot of us were tweeting it on Thursday saying this could be the night with the speed. What you made of what you've seen of him?
Well, I like him a lot. I mean, and I think you're right. I mean, I think the last kickoff return was Rashad Ross, maybe against the Giants, way back when that was also the year that who was the kid that Scott McLuhan wanted to be the running back over Alfred Morris, who kept fumbling, the big guy out of Florida, and I'm losing my mind.
You know what? Samaje P. Ryan.
No, it wasn't P. Ryan. It was the guy before
Rob?
the big kid.
Not Big Rob. Big Rob? Fat Rob? What did you call him?
No. Fat Rob beat him out. It was the guy that got Brown. Wasn't it Brown? Oh, God, I'm losing my mind now. The kid that, anyway, he was out of Florida. He kept fumbling, and he was the guy. Matt Jones. Thank you. It was a boring name. It was Matt Jones. Thank you. Matt Jones, right? So, anyway, that was the Matt Jones game. He ended up fumbling on the goal line against the Giants in that game. They lost. Anyway, Rashad Ross, I think, in that game, my point was he returned a kickoff for a touchdown. But anyway, it's been a while. But DeAndre Carter is lightning fast. You're right. He's aggressive. He seems to know where he wants to go. He knows what blocking is setting up. I think he'll break one at some point this season. I guess there was some ball security issues with him and some pass stops. I haven't seen that here, thankfully. But, yeah, I like him a lot. If you notice, the Giants went out of their way to short kick and high to kind of take away the returns on him. They didn't blow it out of the end zone, although Gano certainly could have. I kind of like the way Joe Judge did it. I thought he's a special teams coach, obviously, by nature, in his trade before he was here. So he cares about special teams, and it's important. I mean, Washington was playing a deficit most of the game in the first half on field position because of the way the Giants were playing. They were popping those kicks up, and Washington would have to return them. And, they were getting their guys down there, and it was tough on Carter. But Carter, if you watched it, if you're there live, he did as much as he could for him. So, and he had to return him. And there was some guy on social media that was like, well, why does he keep returning? I'm like, he's had a choice. I mean, the ball's getting in there. Either you let the ball bounce and it's an onside kick, genius, and the Giants the ball, or you return it. It wasn't like they were going to the end zone, so he had to come up and take it. and he did a good job doing what he could. And in week one and throughout the preseason when he returned punts, I think he's been solid. But yeah, I think he's a weapon. You see him a little bit incorporated on those jet sweep fakes. At some point, I think he's going to keep one, and that'll be interesting to see how he does if they get him some open real estate, because he's definitely explosive.
Yeah, no, most definitely. I'm calling it now. We're scoring off a kickoff return.
I would love to see it, man.
I'm calling it now, Scott.
Yeah, hidden points, the hidden yards are all special teams.
You
act like, I know the NFL's trying to de-emphasize the kickoff, to cover their ass with this concussion stuff. But come on, I mean, it's still a phase of the game until you take it out and they, play like you do in your backyard and put the ball next to hedges at your 25-yard line. Well, I'm so old, damn, we was 20 when I was a kid. But anyway, you just don't, you're going to still, you might as well use it. It's part of the game, I don't understand why you wouldn't find somebody that was, at plus for you in that position. And I think they've done that to this point. That's good.
Yeah. Scott, before we get out of here, I've mentioned it. So many people have messaged me. The missed field goal. Then we got to redo. We got to do it all over again.
Yep.
Where do you sit with Mr. Hopkins? He divides opinion. For me, I've said it. If you've listened to our show, I've had people call into your show after the game. All I've ever asked for is the man to have competition at Washington.
Right.
They have that position flex. I can't clip it like Al Gordy does. I can't put that in there right now. But he needs that competition in Washington. Where do you stand with him? Because when he missed that field goal, I was just like, not again. No.
Right.
I looked up at my TV. It was like something like 5 a.m. in the morning. I saw that yellow flag. I was like, please just do not miss this one. And he even said in his interview, he hit the first one sweeter than he hit the second one. Where do you stand on the whole thing?
Well, I'm with you. I don't understand why it was such a given that he was the kicker. Right. Most important, I would be one of these jerk coaches that would have a kicking competition every year. I mean, unless I had like Adam Vinatieri in his heyday, or a Gostkowski in his heyday, or one of those guys. I would always operate like you got to have competition. This is what they preach here. This is the one position that doesn't get it. They brought Eddie Pinheiro in for I don't know, was it a week? I don't know if he just sucked, if he was a jerk. I don't know what he did. I don't know what happened. He was here on the practice squad for a week and supposed to can punt too. That's the other thing. Like with COVID, man, you got to have like a backup to the backup in every position on your practice squad that you can bring up. And, God forbid you're on the road or whatever, whenever they test, somebody comes down with COVID or symptoms of it, and you got to put them out for the game. You got to have a kicker available. So I don't know. I'll be interested to see if they add another, emergency kicker to the practice squad or what have you. But yes, I mean, I think had he missed this game, I mean, if they lost the game on that kick, I mean, it would have been a long 10 days. I mean, Ron Rivera has been very confident in him. I don't know how you could keep being confident in him if those things happen. And we go back to some of the losses last year, like the Giants lost. Everybody goes, well, Ron should have never gone for two. Well, his kicker had missed an extra point and a field goal in that game, if you remember. So he's probably wasn't so sure he was going to make the extra point anyway, in that game. So there's just so many games that were like, razor thin margins. And I think this team is a razor thin margin kind of team in a lot of cases, and you can't afford to have your kicker yakking them. So yeah, I mean, I think it's something they've got to continue to look at as the season goes on. And I think I was encouraged when they brought Pinheiro in, but it didn't last long. So I don't know if it's just him or whatever. They needed a spot for something they felt was more pressing. Yeah,
most definitely. Maurice, anything for Scott before we let him go?
Yeah, Scott, just what are your thoughts as far as what Taylor Heineke needs to do to remain the starter once Ryan Fitzpatrick gets off an injury reserve? I mean, they're saying 6 to 8 weeks. So
right.
8 weeks, that puts him right around the Tampa game. Like, where do you think he needs to be record-wise to retain that starting position, even when Fitzpatrick comes back?
Well, I mean, you want to be, a winning team. You want to have more wins and losses for him as the starter. But at the same time, let's say he goes out and does his job, which I quite frankly thought he did in the Chargers game, and you lost because your defense let them move the ball down the field on a 3rd and 18 from their own 8-yard line or where the hell it was in the 5, backed up. That I wouldn't have benched Taylor because of that if Fitzpatrick was available the next week. I just think, look, if he plays like anywhere near he's played in every game he's played in so far, I think he keeps the job. I mean, quite frankly, you don't know Fitzpatrick anything. I mean, really, you don't. I mean, you called him the starter at the beginning of the year, but you see the way the players react to this guy. It's not just like some goofy fan thing. I mean, it's not like the fans liking, somebody in the preseason back in the day. For me, it was Babe Loffenberg, or there was the Colt Brennan year, whoever, name your quarterback, right? It's not like that. And I think Bram Weinstein brought this up to me on Friday when I was on his show. And it's a great point. He's the one quarterback that we've had in this city in the last, I don't know how many years, that the fan base there's no controversy about it, right? Like everybody's behind him. Like, yeah, I love the guy. You may not think he's your quarterback for the next 5 to 10 years, but you think he's the right guy right now. And we're okay with that. We're not like, oh man, like last year, everybody's like, well, screw Kyle Allen because he's the reason Dwayne Haskins got benched, and give Dwayne the ball, no matter what. Or hell with Alex Smith, he's boring, even though he was 11-5 in his time here. Or Kirk Cousins, I hate him. He's a stat collector, and I liked RG3, so screw Kirk Cousins no matter what happens, and that kind of stuff. So there's none of that BS, which is nice. It's just kind of like, hey, this kid was like doing math, and we needed a quarterback. He came in and balled out. What more can you say? I mean, that's all you can, again, base it on, whether you're, a guy who thinks he's here long-term or not, is every time he comes in, he's a positive for them, right? Every time he's played, he's been a positive. Now, will that continue? Let's hope so. I don't know. I mean, that's Buffalo, again, going to be a really good test for him. But I'll tell you what, you think the hype train, the Heineke's are going now. Imagine if he goes into Buffalo and wins and plays big. And, they come out of that mix, between the Buffalo and the Atlanta start. If he comes away with a couple wins or even splits them, man, he comes back home for New Orleans, you got to feel pretty good about where you are, with him as the quarterback. And it's just a weird part of this whole thing is nobody saw this team winning a shootout early in the year, except for Sabah, our caller, who told us they needed to win a shootout.
Yeah, Scott, thank you so much for taking the time to jump on with us. I can now listen to you. Funny story, Scott. So I now get the app after the game. I don't get live. I can't hear the commentary, but I watch all the games anyway. So the game finished about 5 a.m. for me Friday morning. So I watched the game downstairs. Off I went upstairs to bed. My wife's in now. I climb into bed. She's like, oh, hello, dear. How was the game? I'm like, yeah, the game's good. She goes, okay, get some sleep. 10 seconds later, your voice comes on. She's like, what are you doing? I'm listening to the post game. Scott's on. She's like, hey, are you crazy?
Turn this jerk off.
It's just like it's 5 o'clock in the morning. I'm like,
right.
I'm not missing this.
Wow.
So yeah, for like the next hour and a half, I had you on, Scott. I just started my day at like.
See, I got to start remembering how late you're up when I'm going to bed, complaining to myself like, why am I here? Why? Oh, I'm so late.
I think your show finished at like 6:15 a.m. for me.
Oh my God.
Like
yeah,
that.
I mean, I just think I got to bed at like 2:30 that night or something, or tried to. It was crazy, but yeah, I mean, it's that's good to hear. Yeah, so the deal with the game broadcast is you can only hear them if you have Sirius XM because they have an exclusive rights deal with the NFL.
I hear all the build up, but then I have
I have
NFL. Yeah, I have Game Pass. As soon as the game's finished, I can listen to you guys, and it's awesome. Brilliant. So Scott, thank you so much as always.
Thank you guys
joining me and Maurice. Keep up the great work, my friend. We really appreciate your time.
Thank you, Maurice. Thank you, Andy. You guys take care. Have a good day.
Thanks, Scott. Take care, my friend. Maurice, always a pleasure to chat with the voice of Washington, Mr. Scott Jackson. Maurice, we have a few more questions that have come in for myself and you, if I can actually just find them. Peter Chilton says, Maurice, after seeing the first two games, how confident are we in the rest of the season? It looked like two fairly poor teams playing on Thursday night. So, Maurice, obviously, you were at the first game. We've seen the second game. How would you had to sum up the two games so far from a Washington standpoint? How would you sum it up? And like, how confident are you about moving into the Buffalo game next week?
Well, I'm very confident, and I'll tell you why. Because I mean, Washington. Let's go back to the Chargers game, right? So Washington had the lead going into the fourth quarter. Mm-hmm. So had it not been for the Gibson fumble after we got the interception when the Chargers marched down the field, we could have closed that game out. But I think they were going to be conservative, running the ball, use some clock, and try to maybe get to a field goal and then put the defense back on the field. But that didn't happen. The second game, we showed some tenacity and battle a team that has had our number for the past 4 years, the New York Giants. And I think we said at the beginning of the season that we would feel a lot better about this team, even if they lost to the Chargers. It was mandatory, it was paramount that they beat the Giants, and they did that. So now I think for Coach Rivera in particular, I mean, he's beaten all the teams in the NFC East within his first 2 years. Beating the Giants, big deal. I think that the mood of the team is going to be a lot better. I think that the things that they need to work on in this extended period, going into the Buffalo game, they're going to work on those things. And here's the thing about it: we all want the team to win against Buffalo, but it is going to be a daunting challenge playing a team that was in the AFC Championship at their home.
Yeah, you can't make the mistakes that you've made in the first two.
No.
You're never going to get a perfect game, Maurice. But do you feel that you can't? You can't. Obviously, you can't cut out every single error. It's football. It happens. It happens to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. It happens to all the good teams. But you really, really need to dial this in now going into this Buffalo game, because if you make some of the mistakes that we made, say from the first and the second game, we had a lot. Lady Luck was definitely on our side on Thursday, Maurice. You think the Giants literally dropped a touchdown in the end zone. Daniel Jones got called back. We had some, hot pad. You have to minimize all, like Ron Rivera is saying, he wants us to minimize all these mistakes. He probably understands that mistakes are still going to happen. Like Scott just said, we're still having issues at linebacker. We're not quite sure what's going on there. They're kind of still finding their feet. But this nearly, Maurice, for you, does it have to nearly be the perfect game next Sunday?
I don't think it has to be the perfect game next Sunday. I think what we got to do is avoid big plays. Like, for example, you can't have Josh Allen, going on 15, 20, 25-yard scampers off bootleg plays next week. Like if Buffalo's doing that kind of stuff, then we can go ahead and just pack a lunch and everything like that. You don't want the thing is we don't want Allen to just do whatever he wants to do as quarterback, and we got to eliminate the big play. Part of the challenge with Washington, and I saw this in the Chargers game, is that what these teams are doing is that they're going to quick counts. The quarterback's doing like 3-step drops and getting the ball out. So they're not allowing, that talented defensive line to get the amount of pressure they need to get to the quarterback. So that's going to be on Coach Del Rio to figure out ways to dial up pressure and get these quarterbacks off balance so they can't get in a passing rhythm and and get the ball down the field. And then the other thing too, like Stephon Diggs, he's a very talented wide receiver. So we're going to have our lunch, we have to eat our lunch to be ready for him. But I don't think we have to play a perfect game. We just have to avoid big plays.
Yeah.
And I think Turner's going to have to be aggressive on offense. I thought the play that McKissick, really showed some imagination from Turner. And I think that McKissick probably needs to be utilized a lot more.
Impressed with him. Very impressed with him.
In different situations because he can catch the team off balance. And I like to see Patterson get some touches throughout the game as well.
Yeah, most definitely. Just finally, Maurice, Ron Rivera mentioned it in his press conference yesterday. I just get your opinion. What do we need to do better on third down? That seems to be, we can't get off the field at the minute sometimes, and it's whether it's been 3 and 6, 3 and 7, we just can't seem to get off the field on third downs. Is it like you say though, because the quarterbacks are getting the ball out of their hands so quickly? Is that something that we need to go and evaluate that film and see how we counterbalance that? Because teams are trying to counter us. Is it now a case of us having to counter them on third down?
Yeah, I mean, we definitely got to counter these teams on third down. And I just think, number one, we got to get to the quarterback on third down. Like, whether it's a stack or, blocking a pass or, hurrying him, so he doesn't get set in his passing lanes and deliver the ball down the field. And then I also think that we got to make sure that we're blocking these passes from these receivers and these tight ends. I think that the teams are attacking in that middle space. Look at that, like there hasn't been a lot of deep balls against us, but in that middle area where those linebackers are, teams have been tearing us apart. So we got to figure that out, and that's going to be on Coach Del Rio to figure it out. Just to kind of talk about some of the things that Scott talked about earlier with Jamin Davis. Like Jamin Davis is a rookie, right? I mean he's a very talented rookie, as Pro PFF said. But he's still a rookie. So, he's not going to know everything. And I know fans expect – you can't compare Jamin Davis to Chase Young. They're two totally different players, two totally different acumen, two totally different skill sets and everything like that. Chase gets to pin his ears back and attack. Jamin's responsible for setting the defense. He's got to see what the quarterback's doing, what the running backs are doing, what the receivers are doing. They're that next line of defense. So he's figuring that all out. And I think that it's only week 2. Week 2. We played 2 games. We're 1-1. We beat a team in the division.
Which was good because we don't play in the division now till December.
That was a huge win because that was banking a win because I think that we got to win at least 4 division games to win the division.
Yeah.
So that means we're going to have to split with, we're going to have to sweep somebody and.
Giants are your best chance. Giants would be your best chance for a sweep this year. Cowboys look good.
if you sweep the Giants and you split with the Eagles and the Cowboys, that puts you at 4-2.
Mhm.
So, we got some tough games ahead of us and everything like that. So right now, I don't think we need to push the panic button right now. I don't even think we need to push the panic button if we don't beat Buffalo. Now, when we play Atlanta, if we lose to Atlanta and we're 1-3, then it's time to push the panic button. So
Yeah.
I just think that we want to beat Buffalo. We don't beat them. There's no need to panic. It's the Atlanta game that we definitely got to win.
Yeah, most definitely, most definitely. Well, Maurice, it's an absolute pleasure, as always, to talk some football with you. And Maurice, now, the DC Tweet team you started many, many years ago. Here we are now, my friend. We're on YouTube.
It's crazy. It's crazy. I mean, the thing about it is that, number one, got to congratulate you and, leading this effort and bringing all these amazing people together, these guests, myself, Shelley. It's just been an extraordinary ride. And now that we're on YouTube, we're going to games, we're getting top level interviews with people. It's a whole broader movement right now. So it's, just having all these different platforms to share our experiences and our passion for Washington football is just extraordinary. So I'm really happy about it.
Yeah, most definitely, my friend. I'm loving it. But like you say, go to YouTube, DC Tweet Team Podcast, hit that subscribe button. The audio versions are still on Apple, Spotify, Google Play, wherever you find us. But Maurice, we are going to be back on Wednesday, going more in depth into the Buffalo game, my friend. Hopefully Shelley will be with us. We wish her good health. We know she's a bit under the weather at the moment. But my friend, have a good few days. I will catch up with you on Wednesday, buddy.
Watch some football today. Great matchup tonight with Kansas City and Baltimore. So really curious to watch that game, see Patrick Mahomes against Lamar Jackson. That's going to be really fun.
It's going to be good to chill on a Sunday, not have a heart attack while watching football, and just watch some games, sing some beers. And my mighty Tottenham Hotspurs are playing Chelsea today, so I get a double whammy, Maurice. But Maurice, I will catch you on Wednesday, my friend.
All right, thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, this has been the DC Tweet Team Podcast. I have been your host, Andy Burrows. That has been the amazing Maurice Hawkins. Till next time, everybody, stay safe.